Hi folks, today we're going to be talking about Haydn's Emperor Quartet and specifically its second movement. So the Emperor Quartet is the third of the six-string quartets that make up Opus 76. Opus 76 was put together between 1796 and 97, and these quartets were commissioned by and dedicated to this count named Joseph Erudi. So why is it called Emperor? Well, during the 1790s, Haydn's in England a fair amount, and during this time, Haydn becomes very fond of the English national anthem called God Save the King. He's so fond of it, in fact, that he decides to write an anthem for Austria called God Save Emperor Francis, specifically referring to the emperor of the time, Francis II. Haydn hijacks his own anthem in the second movement of this quartet, and he uses it as a theme for this theme and variations movement. And it really comes across like a conversation between four friends. So, some very quick basic information about this piece. There's not a lot you need to know here. String quartet, so two violins, viola, cello, composed in 1797 in four movements, although we're only looking at the second one, and it's commissioned by the aforementioned count. Here's the lyrics of the original anthem, or rather the translated lyrics. They're written by this Austrian poet named Lorenz Leopold Haschka. And then Haydn took those lyrics and turned them into his anthem. I'll drop a link to the original anthem in the description for you, so have a listen to it. There's a few things I want to pick out. First, we got 5 phrases making up a structure of A, A, B, C, C, as you can see by the red letters in the square on the screen. That being said, if you zoom out, this anthem is in binary form. I think you could see it as the two A's being the A section and the B's, or the B and C's, acting as your B or second section. And because it's an anthem, we've got mainly diatonic harmonies. This isn't really a complicated little lick here. Basic info about this movement. G major, theme and variations. It's 4 variations. First marked tempo in the theme is poco adagio cantabile, and our meter is 2-2, straightforward, yeah? I've dropped a link to the entire quartet with a score below for you, so try and listen to the entire quartet. It's definitely worth your while. As usual, I've given you the timestamps in the top left corner so that you can more easily navigate your way through the excerpts we're discussing. So here's our theme. We've got the 5 AABCC phrases. Our dynamics piano, we're also given dolce, so sweetly. We're also in homophonic texture. The RCM then gives this kind of weird note saying that, quote, accents introduced at the climatic high G, measure 12, impart a stirring intensity to the music. Well, I say that's weird because it's just a very specific but pretty unimportant thing to be pointing out. It kind of feels like the musical equivalent to spoon feeding, but there you are. Pay attention to the sforzandos. That being said, the sforzandos by the Alban Berg Quartet, which is the quartet playing in the recording I've given you, they're quite fantastic. So now we're into the variations. Something that's very interesting is that the melody never actually gets altered and turned into a variation itself. Instead, the variations happen around the melody and the other instruments. In other words, somebody is always playing the unaltered theme. In this first variation, that theme is dropped down to the second violin, and much to the joy of violinist egos everywhere, this variation features only 2 violins playing, so good call, Haydn. The first violin is really acting as an accompaniment to the second violin. Even though the first part seems to be this virtuosic thing, it really isn't meant to be. It's there to bolster up and lift up the theme being played in the second violin. Second variation, I think this is kind of the crown jewel of this entire piece, or at least of this entire movement. Here our theme's gotten dropped down to the cello, and we've got these contrapuntal lines really only in the violins weaving together above the melody. They're really pushing things forward with a syncopated rhythmic drive. And we're also starting to see some spots of chromaticism showing up in the first violin, which really spices up this otherwise very diatonic-based theme. Third variation, and we're flying here because theme and variations is quite straightforward, as I think you'd expect. So third variation, themes in the viola, so automatically we know this is the worst of the 4 variations. You'll notice that sometimes the first violin starts to anticipate what the theme does, and that's simply because violin is better than viola. I hope I'm not alienating my violist audience. You folks are loved, but you made your choices and now you have to live with them. Those small chromaticisms from the previous variation, remember those? Well, now we've got full-blown chromatic harmonies. We've got this very rich texture now of chromaticism and rhythmic intrigue created by the syncopation in the violins. And then we're at the final variation. So the theme is back in the first violin and all is well. It starts off in the middle register and then it bumps up, not quite into the stratosphere, but pretty high up there. It's quite delicate. This variation kind of feels like the culmination of all the work done in the previous variations. We've got this reharmonization where we get some E minor. So now we're not only getting this some chromaticism, but we're really starting to sit into E minor, which gives us this more somber sense about the music. But we do end up in G major again by the time we wrap up the A phrases. By the time we hit the B phrase, we're operating in 5 of G major. And you can see this from this big old pedal point in the cello. And then as we're nearing the end, we get a tonic pedal point again from the cello, which helps us to give some closure to the movement. If you're having a hard time locating that pedal point just from listening, just look at the score where you see a bunch of whole notes tied together. That's it. And that's it for Haydn. Next time we're going to start looking at Mozart. Thanks for listening.